Okay, let's talk about how to get free probate leads from your county's courthouse. And now the thing I want you to keep in mind, well, actually two things. The first thing I want you to keep in mind is that free is a relative term. While it's not going to cost you any money, well, aside from like, gas in your car and that kind of thing, it is certainly going to cost you time and energy to get these leads. The second thing I want to tell you about is this process. This is a kind of a generic process. Your specific county's courthouse may work a little bit different than what I'm about to tell you, but all I can do is kind of tell you what has worked for me at the courthouses that I have visited. So there may be a little bit of trial and error in this for you, but I promise you, if you make an effort to go to the courthouse and you try it like a time or two and figure out kind of the nuances of your specific courthouse, it's not that complicated. So what I'm going to give you is kind of the basic process. Okay, here's how to get free leads from your courthouse for probate. Go to the county clerk's office. Ask the county clerk for the case numbers within a specific date range. Take those case numbers to the archive inside the courthouse. Once you're in the archive, look up those case numbers and record the pertinent information. You want to just take notes and gather this information. These are your leads that you're going to be getting from the archive by looking up those case numbers. And what you want to get is the property's address, and you want the executor's address. You want the executor's address because that's where you're going to be sending a piece of mail. You want the property's address because that's what you're going to be referencing inside the piece of mail, and you're going to be using that to, do your due diligence and that kind of thing to figure out if that's a property that qualifies as a lead for you. And while you're inside the archives looking at those case numbers, also record any other information that might be available there. For instance, there might be some phone numbers there that you can use to try to track down the executor and get in touch with them. So record the pertinent information. And then you just simply repeat that process and look up all the case numbers, record the information, and that is how you build your lead list of free leads from the courthouse. That's it. Again, remember, it's a very simple process. It really is. But your courthouse might work a little differently, and depending on who you talk to, sometimes these people kind of need kind of a friendly amount of guidance in the right direction, because again, probate is not a high competition lead source, and this is something that a lot of county offices simply do not get a lot of requests of. So the people that are working there, it may be very new to them. Don't be discouraged by this, because it's that kind of thing that is eliminating a lot of your competition. So it's a good thing, trust me. And once you get through this process a time or two, it's actually very simple. Now, not all of the case files that you're going to look up in the archive are going to have complete information. It's just the way the data was recorded. There's nothing that you can really do about it. What I suggest is focus on the leads that have the most information first, because that's going to give you the best opportunity to monetize those probate leads. Now, I've hinted on this before. I really like the leads where the executor is out of town. Those are very good leads because they are often the ones that are the most motivated. So out-of-town executors are a very good thing. Now, if you're researching records that are really old, they're a year or more old, what you want to do with those is just verify those records before you spend too much time on them, or before you send mail to them, because you're going to have time and energy and expense tied up with sending mail. And simply what I mean is, look up those addresses online, see if they may have sold on the MLS. Because obviously if the house is, sold, it's not an opportunity for you anymore. So especially spend a little bit of time, research those old leads, and quite possibly rule those out before you invest any time and money and expense into those older leads. Another thing you'll see when you're looking up these records is not all of the leads are going to have real estate for sale. A lot of times the probate is, it just doesn't necessarily mean that real estate is part of the probate process. If real estate isn't, in the probate records, that's not a lead for you. So simply rule those out. Now let me talk about another thing you'll see when you're looking up this information at the courthouse. You'll find leads with weird or incomplete information. For instance, you'll see an address that is the address for a nursing home or an apartment or a condo or an attorney's address. Another thing you might see is an attorney is the executor. Now, these leads with missing or weird information, they can still be worked, but they are what I would call low probability leads. Now, depending on the way you look at them, there's kind of a pro and con to these low probability leads. On one hand, it means that the competition on these are going to be very, very low. There's not going to be anybody going after these houses because, you know, they don't want to waste their time on them, basically. However, if you want to follow up on these leads and work these low probability leads, it almost always guarantees that you're going to be the only guy interested in these houses. So while these leads are probably, you know, these leads are most often not going to result in a deal for you, the deals that do come from them can be very sweet. So whether you choose to pursue these low probability leads is kind of a factor of how much time you have available and what your marketing expenses are and what your local competition levels are. You know, for instance, if you're in a really, really hot market, it'd probably pay to pursue these leads. But if you're in a market where you find that, you know, you have very little to no competition, it's your call on that, but I would probably say don't mess around with the really low probability stuff. So when you're looking up these records, let's talk about what exactly qualifies as a lead, because not every record is a real estate probate lead for you. So what qualifies as a lead? Well, for one thing, the property address must be in your target area. I mean, if you're looking at a lead here and it's outside of some place that you want to deal with, obviously you don't want to send mail and, you know, invest your time into that lead. So the property must be in your target area. Now this one is kind of a personal thing for me. Number two is that the executor is not the spouse of the deceased. Now this is a point where I do kind of draw a line in my moral code. You know, personally, I don't like sending mail to an executor if it is, you know, their husband or wife that is passed away. To me, that's, I don't know, to me it just doesn't feel quite right. You got to kind of put yourself in the mind of the executor. If their husband or wife recently passed away, then they're getting a letter, you know, from the mail. You know, to me it doesn't feel quite right. It's your call if you want to send mail to this person if they are the wife or husband of the deceased. But I'm just telling you what my personal preference is. This one is up to you. But for me, if the executor is the spouse of the deceased, you know, I rule that one out. Okay, obviously the lead must have the name of the deceased. The lead must also have the address of the deceased. And it must also have the name and address of the executor. If it does not have, you know, all of those items, for me it is not a lead. I mean, some of these things you just absolutely have to have. You have to have the property address. You have to have the address of the executor. Obviously it has to be in your target market. You know, you got to make the call on if you're going to send the lead to the executor if it is their spouse. But, you know, it must have, you know, that certain set of data in order to qualify for a lead. If it does not, then don't waste your time on it. Okay, let's talk about this real quick. It's important that you know that these probate records at the courthouse, they are public domain. You know, they don't belong to, you know, the courthouse. They don't get to decide who sees these or not. You know what I mean? If anybody in the public wishes to see these records, they have a right to do so. And I say that for a specific reason. The courthouse workers that you're going to be interacting with in order to get these free leads from the courthouse, they may need some friendly guidance to be pointed in the right direction. And again, that's a result of this being kind of an uncommon process that they go through a lot of times. And it's that uncommon process that keeps your competition from, you know, getting involved in all this probate stuff. So again, it's a good thing, but it can be kind of a frustrating thing. So sometimes you might have to kind of work with these courthouse workers to get them kind of headed in the right direction for you. You may also have to remind them that, you know, these are public records. If they say, you know, you can't see them for any particular reason, or that, you know, whatever, if they give you some kind of pushback, remind them that those are public records and that, yeah, you have a right to see those. So just want you to know that little fact. Another important thing is that depending on your courthouse and how, modern they're set up, some of these courthouse record systems are in fact computer based. I've actually found that most of them aren't, but I don't know, maybe this kind of thing is changing, but usually it's all kind of cataloged in a big box and you got the files in there and that kind of thing. But a lot of them are going to computers. It's, the process is still going to be, it's still basically the same process. You just look up case files on a computer system and the records are right there in front of you. You take down the records and that's it. But yeah, sometimes they're computer based. Now, the process of retrieving these free probate leads from the courthouse, it can be a little awkward. I mean, especially the first time. You're talking to people you've never talked to before. You're likely kind of walking them through a process that they're not even all that familiar with. But yeah, it can be a little awkward, but I promise you, after you do this like 2 times, it's a piece of cake. These the courthouse workers, they're going to understand who you are and what you're doing and why you're doing it, and they're going to know exactly how to do this stuff. So once you meet these guys and you build some rapport and walk them through the process a time or two, it's not going to be any kind of thing at all. And really, you're going to be doing this kind of frequently with these free leads from the courthouse, because you want to keep your lead pipeline going. So you're going to be making repeat trips to the courthouse if you want to pursue these free probate leads. One thing that can save you a lot of time is just, you have the record there in front of you, use your phone and take a picture of the record, and that way you've got, the record's right there on your phone. You can go back and you got all the information there. You don't worry about missing information. Same with the computer. You can get the information up on the computer and then take a picture with your phone. That can actually save you a lot of time. So just another little helpful hint that can help you get those free leads from the courthouse.